Hello and welcome to Read Read. Today I don't have any particular books I'm talking about, just some tea. Because today I'm going to be doing the Honest Booktuber tag, or Are You Honester Than a Booktuber? So thank you to Ruben over at Readers It May Concern. Yeah, I've never done a tag video, but I was interested in these questions because one, it was a pretty unique tag, and also kind of thanks to Ruben, I think his video was like a little bit of a bump that helped me get over a certain milestone. Like I reached about 4,000 subscribers, I think because of that video. So thank you again to Ruben. And yeah, I figured this could be a fun enough way of like almost doing a soft Q&A without actually doing a Q&A video. But then also, because of when this video is scheduled to come out, it actually pairs well with another video that I have planned. This video, if I remember correctly, it will be scheduled to come out around the start of September. And at the end of September, I have a video planned called How to Talk About Books on YouTube, where I'm going to talk, yes, about how to set up a camera, how to film, and also how to like take notes and how to try and present yourself on camera. But I'm also going to dig a little bit into the behind the scenes or the philosophy of why I make certain choices that I make on channels, and how other booktubers make certain choices. So yeah, I think that this video and that video will sort of synergize well. By the way, at the end, one of the last things is to tag some people. I'm not going to tag anyone in particular because I know that we booktubers, we do have a pretty particular schedule, or we like making the sort of content that we like. So I'm just going to at least list a couple of names of booktubers that I like. No obligation to make any videos. I just hope that if you watch my videos and you like them, then you'll probably also like these booktubers. And I want to put this actually near the front of the video, just to hopefully increase the chances of people seeing it. But the booktubers that I personally love are, of course, Readers It May Concern, Strange Lucidity, Leaf by Leaf, Prose and Petticoats, A Day of Small Things, Scott Bradfield, reading great books in the bathtub, Orpheus, Rambling Raconteur, Travel Through Stories, Great Books Explained, Adam Walker's Close Reading Poetry, Fiction Beast, Better Than Food, Everyone Who Reads Must Converse, Books of Some Substance, Waste, which shout out to a fellow Sydneyer, and also The Left-Handed Reader. Sorry if I've left anyone out, but I wanted to, just say the names of some of the great channels at the front. Anyway, let's get started talking about the questions. Number 1, have you ever lied about reading a book? So on the channel, almost definitely no. In person, maybe yes, maybe. So although I've never, let's start with on the channel actually, because I can think of a pretty good example. Obviously, if I've ever made a video where I have said the words, I have read this, or I have read this book, then I have read the book. There's no way I would ever make a video pretending to have read a book. However, one thing that's standing out to me is that in my video on one-day reading experiences, near the end of the video, the idea or the concept that I was trying to get across was that you should read books that were essays on topics that you're interested in. And so I studied jazz music, and the book that I used as an example was Ralph Ellison's Living in Music. I haven't actually read that book, but I have read books on jazz essays and reading biographies and other essay collections. So the concept was there. I don't know if the impression was that I had read that specific book, but yeah, I figured I would just at least come clean, just in case people thought that I had read Living in Music by Ralph Ellison. I haven't yet read it, but I have read books of that category or that theme, and that was just the book that I had on hand to kind of express that concept in the video. But yeah, there's no way that if I've ever done a review for a video for a book, or if I've ever explicitly said I've read this book, I'm definitely not lying. In real life, on the other hand, still no, I've not lied and said that I've read a book, but there are times when, you're talking to people, you're at book clubs or writing clubs or anything like that, and then some people are talking about some books that they love, and when you get excited, you just start rapid firing, and you're like, yeah, you're talking about this book, and I would definitely say that there are times where someone mentions a book and you're like, and then they say, oh yeah, and it's like in The Picture of Dorian Gray and then in my head I'm like, oh yes, I've read Picture of Dorian Gray, go on. And then they say, oh yeah, but then it also makes me think about in Frankenstein and I'm like, yes, 2 for 2, I have read Frankenstein, keep going. But then they'll be like, oh, and that part in Middlemarch, or the way that Eliot, and I'm just like, I've heard of Middlemarch, but I'm not going to kind of interrupt them in the middle of talking and say like, hold, I have not read Middlemarch, go on. I'll kind of let the conversation play out. If it gets to the part where I will then start talking, I will just say, oh, so I've not actually read Middlemarch, but blah, 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 blah. Generally, I've found that, of course, there's like the dopamine rush of kind of lying as an impulse, but it just kind of falls apart, and it's almost like it can become almost its own dopamine rush to be more like radically honest in times. I generally find that if I am in these situations where I'm at like a book club and someone talks about a book, even though it might have the first impulse reaction of being like, oh, if I go like this, then it's ambiguous enough where they can maybe think, oh yeah, he's read it, but I'm actually just like, I have heard of that book. It almost just becomes its own sort of thrill to just be like, oh, I've not read that book, can you talk to me about it? And then they transition into this different type of talking where they're talking in a spoiler-free way, but they're just they then get into, all right, I'm in convincing mode now, and I like doing that as well. Like if someone's not read a book that I've read, of course you want to be able to talk about details from a book, but it can be just as fun to talk about or to do the do your elevator pitch to convince someone to read a book. So I do want to recommend for anyone, if you have lied about reading a book, try the radical honesty approach instead, because I think you'll find that the conversation can and will be just as rewarding, even if you just flat out say like, oh, sorry, I've not read War and Peace, or I've not read, blah, blah, blah. Next question. Have you ever avoided a book because of controversy around the content/author? Mostly no. I think eerily similar to Ruben To Read As It May Concern, he talked about having a hesitation to talk about David Foster Wallace, and even though I don't have necessarily a hesitation to talk about him because I have made videos on like Infinite Jest and a couple of Wallace's essay collections, I think that there is something holding me back from reading The Pale King, where I actually maybe reckon that I'm going to enjoy it more than Infinite Jest, but there is something about like getting back into the kind of bro literature, dick lit world that I have a little bit of a hesitation about. I don't know why. There's and sometimes I'll justify it as saying, oh, I really need to read some more female authors and like some more representation and whatnot. And but I also I know that I'm going to enjoy The Pale King, and so I don't know why I'm putting it off as much as I am. In terms of the more conventional reasons why books get avoided or banned, I don't care about any of that shit. Like, generally, as soon as I hear the reason for a book being banned, it's like, oh, they dared to display some sexuality or some LGBT themes, or this book was offensive to this particular group of people and I don't like admire their reasons for banning it. Like that stuff, it kind of gets like, you just ignore it. You wipe that shit. But then you do have to make the decision of, it's like, even though I don't care about their reasons for banning it, do I want to read this book in its own right? And am I able to kind of separate the fact that it is being banned? And I tried to talk about that a little bit in the video where I was talking about the satanic verses, where I felt like because of the uproar that the satanic verses made within the Islamic community, the book kind of had to be the perfect criticism of Islam because of how big of a deal it was, where I don't think it is that like brilliant of a criticism at all, or it's not the most brilliant criticism. It's talking about other things, but it can be hard to, I find it hard to separate, like you can't ignore that people universally criticize Ayn Rand or things like that, but it can be hard. I don't think I've ever explicitly avoided a book, but maybe because of the controversy or the aura around an author, it's sort of helped me to subconsciously postpone it, or just be like, I'll get to that, at some point. But I can't think of a specific book that I've avoided reading just because, the author said a bad thing. Have you ever been sent a book for free and not disclosed it? No, but I do have a funny story about this, and it's funny now, but it was a little bit of a kind of source of anguish for like 24 hours. An author got in touch with me and asked if they could send me a book. I sussed out the kind of author and I thought, oh wow, this is really cool. Like, firstly, I was ecstatic because it was the first time I'd ever had anything sent to me for free. I'd never had like any donations or anything like that. And the people who I like and respect were talking about them having read this book and they enjoyed it. And I was like, man, this is so great. Sure thing, send the book. I'll be happy to read it. I get the book and I read it, and unfortunately I just didn't love it. I really bounced off it, and I was just like, it's lucky that I'm bold, because otherwise I would have been pulling my hair out, because I was like, oh, this author has sent me a book, but I don't like it, but I'm doing them the favor because I read the book and I donated my time, but then they also gave me the book for free, and so is that them sort of buying my time? Is that the obligation? And then I'm like, oh, but then they wanted me to make a video about it, and I was like, I could make a video, but then I'm gonna lie and say that it was good. But then they wanted me to make an honest video about it, and I don't really like making videos where I'm critical of books. So I was just like, I was really just face in pillow for like a little bit, and eventually I just had to get in contact with the author and say, like, thank you for sending this. I really don't want to make a video because it would be a little bit too critical for the channel, and I gave compliments on like certain parts of the book that I liked, but I just said, overall, I'm really sorry. If I was to make an honest video, I don't think it would be good for either of us. And the author was cool with it, so fortunately I was like, I was able to kind of move on with it. Like, obviously it's not great to hear the criticism if you're on the author's side of it, that a person didn't love your book, but it was the better scenario than making a video about a book and like criticizing it, or just lying and having that as kind of being a permanent stain on the content that I make. So now, because of that, I very rarely do get emails from independent publishers or independent authors, sorry. If they do send me an email, and if I do respond, I basically am just honest at the front. I say, I have a very strict reading schedule. I also have an even more strict category or guidelines for what books I make videos on. I can't guarantee that I'm A, ever going to read this, or B, if I do read this, I can't guarantee that I'm going to make a video on it. You're welcome to send it to me, but please don't expect anything. And that's pretty much the best that I can do, because I really just don't want to get into that position again where an author has sent me something and they really want me to love it. I think the only thing that I can try and do is that if an author sends me a book, I read it and I love it, I will just buy it, so that I can at least feel like, I would think about that as the equivalent of like a friend loaning me a book, I read it, and then I think, oh, I kind of love this, I'm going to go and buy my own copy. I think I could kind of psychologically move on from that idea of needing to fake my reaction because it's because it's a book that they sent me. I reckon if I've put money down for the book, then I'd be able to give a more honest review. So yeah, but I haven't, none of the books on my channel are books that I've been given for free or anything like that, and I would especially not avoid saying that because it is actually illegal to avoid saying that. Have you ever bought a book with no intention of reading it? Probably, if you count, I would say I've never bought a brand new book with the intention of not reading it. I would say that I'm a little bit of a sucker for going to, library, book halls or book fairs and stuff, and there are definitely times where I buy books for $2 and am I gonna read them? Maybe. Like, I'm not buying random books. I'm not just picking up books by the kilogram. I'm generally recognizing the author and thinking, all right, yeah, this could be cool. I might read it, but I don't really like those books. I'm kind of hanging on to them for now, but I reckon I'll probably just either sell or donate them at some point. Maybe, funnily enough, again, similar to Ruben's channel, I think I got the centenary version of Ulysses, and as soon as I held it, I was like, I'm never reading this. Like, I'll skim through for some of the essays and stuff, but I'm never reading Ulysses again with this giant beast of a thing. I don't know if you count these, like these art books that I got when I went to the museums and saw these artists on Bosch and Bruegel. There are words in them, but I'm just looking at the pictures, man. Like, let's be honest, I'm not reading these essays. So yeah, maybe you could count those, but then those are also kind of designed to just be books on your table, or like, on a living room table. So I don't think I've ever bought a book with no intention of reading it. Will I ever read Fraser's The Golden Bow? Because I did buy the complete unabridged Golden Bow, but actually, in fairness, I have skimmed, like, I've used it almost how I reckon it would be intended, which is go to the index, flick through it, find, where it is in the book, and then go and actually read the full collection. But I don't think I'm going to do a full cover-to-cover read of all 13 books. Have you ever got caught up in Booktube drama? No, and probably because no one knows me or no one knows who I am. Like, I know I have a certain amount of subscribers, and of course I'm so thankful for that, but I think that, and again, maybe I'll talk more about this in my how to talk about books on YouTube video, but the aesthetics or the way that I've set up my channel, this is the first video that I've ever made that has my face in the thumbnail, and that is a deliberate choice because I've always wanted, like, the books to be the priority. That's the thing that I think makes this channel, is that I've read these books and I want to talk about these specific books, so the books are always front and center. And even though, like, I'm perfectly aware that YouTube doesn't like that we want to see faces. We want to see like the person holding the book and like have clear text that you can read. It's just not an aesthetic choice that I wanted to make with the channel, and also because the name of the channel is Read Red, and if you ask someone to Google that or to type that into YouTube, they're never going to find it. What I love is that my channel, the only way that people really find it is, okay, if people like Maria at Strange Lucidity or Ruben at To Read As It May Concern are generous enough to actually mention the channel out loud or in their videos. But other than that, really the only way that people find my channel is that it magically gets revealed to them in the kind of YouTube algorithm. And I love that. It's kind of like I'm taking the upfront loss of a lack of popularity because my books are not, or my videos are not necessarily viralable, but I get this idea of it kind of feeling indie or feeling underground. I don't know, I just love that, and I'm willing to sacrifice, that videos are potentially less popular or perform less well because of that. And part of that, or part of the reason that I'm comfortable with that, is because this isn't my job. Like, I'm not trying to make money out of this, or I'm not trying to really think, how can I pay rent for this place by doing the thing that I'm doing now? It's just something that I do for fun. I like talking about books. It's a fun way to spend the morning of my weekend. So yeah, for maintaining that kind of ethereal quality of like, when is my channel going to be revealed to you? I'm happy to sacrifice the the faceless thumbnails and the clickbaitless titles, except for this one. This is going to be a great clickbait title. Have you ever had a hate comment and did you respond? I would say that sometimes I get hate comments, although the comments, they fall into generally three I would say they fall into three different categories. There's positive comments, critical comments, and hate comments. Obviously, positive comments are great. They're just like a nice little hug that people are enjoying. The content that you make. Critical comments are generally pretty generally the best sort of comments, because they're people saying like, oh, you mentioned this, but you could have mentioned this, or you could have pointed this out. Probably the only critical comments that can maybe seem critical or seem like hate comments, but they're actually critical. Generally, it would be pronunciation, where fair enough. Okay, of course, big blunders occur. Me pronouncing the name of Ada or Ada wrong is just a total bonehead move. But, there are times where I will look at the good thing with critical comments is that you read them straight away and you just think like, oh yeah, that person is justified in the sort of criticism that they provide. But then other comments where I'm just like, come on, give someone the benefit of the doubt. If you were in person talking if you were talking to this person in real life, you wouldn't be like this, or you wouldn't say like, oh, you slightly mispronounced this word. So I would say that critical comments are generally fine, because they bear exactly what they are just on the surface, and exactly how to respond to them. Hate comments, they are rare. I'm really happy that they are quite rare. Generally, they're always kind of direct or personal, or and generally kind of cosmetic or aesthetic comments. The only time I generally just ignore them, but the only time I've ever deleted a comment was that there was one particular viewer who was just commenting basically like trash on every video, and just things like, when I made my video on the 10 literary goals, they were talking about Roald Dahl being a pedophile, and I was like I don't want to look at this. It's obvious that you're not actually engaging with the content that I'm talking about, and so I did block that one person, but that's the only time I've ever blocked anyone from a channel. Generally with hate comments, and if you are a YouTuber and you have, hate comments that you can read, it's always going to hurt. Forgive yourself. You don't need to be stoical. You don't need to just be like, oh, that doesn't affect me. It's okay if it affects you. But what I would say is it would be good to develop this reasoning as a kind of impulse response, which is, one, if a person's left a hateful comment, by the time you're reading it, they've already forgotten that they left it. So they've basically walked into your house, they've taken a shit, and then they've left. And unfortunately, you're the person who has to look at the shit. But if you call them out on it, they've already forgotten. They've moved on with their life. And it's only going to further gratify them, because they're going to be like, oh, I remember when I took a shit in that person's house. So generally what you can do is, if you want, you can just kind of clean it up. Just delete the comment if it's really bugging you. But I would just try to recommend the way that a hate comment is it's not a person looking you in the face and saying you're ugly or blah 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 blah. It's just a person sort of shouting it outside of a bus window, and then the bus has just left. And so you just need to realize it's gone. This person has already left your life. They've just kind of left a kind of gross stain in their presence. And the other thing as well is just that the reason that these people are comfortable doing it, if assuming they're real people, which, you know, they probably are real people, they're probably just like young or immature, but assuming they are real people, you know full well that if they were in front of you, they would not say this thing. And so the only reason they're saying it is because they have the anonymity of the internet, and a part of a way that can help to justify it is that they're really not real people. They're not real interactions. Just like when you watch a video, like, yes, I'm trying to be genuine. I'm trying to present the way that I really am. And if this camera was replaced with a person, I would be talking similarly, but of course I would be waiting for you to respond and I'll be having an actual dialogue. If, you know, that's not the case though, and it is still a fixed, decided, edited perspective or a window into my life that I am composing for you. And so, yes, the comments that these people make are not the full embodied representation of all that they are. It's only a fragment. So are you. Like, so is your content. You are also just choosing what fragment. So that can be something that, like, one is two rules to keep in mind. One, they don't remember having made the comment. Two, they're not real. 2B, neither really are you. Anyway, let's move on. Have you ever made a video because you thought, because you knew it would get views? So not really. I guess I kind of talked about this with in the Booktube drama, but one thing, or a funny behind the scenes story that I figured I would share is that so the name of my channel is Read Red, and the kind of running joke or the gag is that I either pronounce it Read Red, Red Read, Read, or Red. And even though I feel like the novelty of that wore off after like 3 videos, I just keep doing it for a year plus. I think in my heart of hearts, when I make videos that I'm really, really proud of, and I just have this little hope that I'm like, oh, I hope this does well, I generally say Read Red. And so it would be interesting if anyone's bothered to go through and just like check out the first couple of seconds of the videos and see how many times I say Read Red, blah, blah, blah. My guess is that it's mostly Read Red and leastly Red. That's just my gut instinct of how it is. But then there are times where I'll do multiple takes of a video, or I'll stop and have false starts, and I'll change it depending on what take it is. So yeah, I can't always tell or remember how many I did, but that's my guess. And I would say that's a little bit of a kind of peek behind the curtains, or just a kind of honest confession that you can kind of tell, even though I'm not planning, I'm going to be like, okay, this is a video that is going to do really well. I'm going to like craft this. You can kind of tell when I want it to be a video that does well. So yeah. If you could go back to the beginning of your channel, would you do anything differently? Not really, because I've always sort of known what this channel was, and there are channels that I really respect because they are so well researched, and channels like Hardcore Literature or Benjamin McAvoy or Leaf by Leaf or Great Books Explained. You look at those videos and it's obviously so well produced that you think, you know, if I was an undergrad writing a research paper on this book, I would feel no shame or anything about referencing these videos as a kind of viable source. I've kind of always known that my videos are not really that. Like, I try to notice interesting things in books, but that's just because I want to notice the interesting things in the books, and I'll just talk about them when I notice them. But the point of this channel has always been just a consistent journal entry, almost like a Künstlerroman or like a reader's roman would be, of just like, here are the books that I'm reading, here's the kind of lineage or the legacy of me as a reader. And I, if I was to, there are things where I fantasize where I'm just like, oh man, I wish I had read this book before I read this book. I wish I'd read Faust before I read Satin Tango, or Faust before I read The Recognitions, or I wish I read Samuel Beckett before I read Donald Barthelme. But that stuff's not like, that stuff's always going to happen unless you decide to read books canonically in chronological order, which ain't nobody got time for that. So I think it's fine. I almost wish I started my channel earlier, to be honest. But it was kind of like the right time. I was on vacation. I was like, yeah, it was a good time to start writing and or to start talking about books. I would say that you don't have to have read that many books. You can just give the thoughts because you're going to learn more. And I really I don't go back and watch videos that I made very often. Like sometimes I do because it's just like, it's fun to go back and read old journal entries every now and then. And sometimes you can read those journal entries and be like, oh man, that was a little bit cringe. Like if only I was as smart as I am now back then I would love reading these journal entries. In which case, just write journal entries now and realize that you're going to feel exactly the same way 3 or 4 years from now. Just let it be what it is. And I love that. Like if you go back and you watch my video on Ada, and please maybe don't, because it is still so cringe that I pronounce the name wrong. It's like my Aussie accent is coming in strong. Ardor. But I love that in that video I say that Nabokov is my favorite author, and then I realize, oh, I've not read Joyce's Ulysses. I've not read William Gaddis. I've not read Clarice Lispector yet. I've not read Pynchon yet. And it's great to go back and see those old videos. They're not as well produced. I wish I figured out how much I like the side angle as opposed to the front on. But yeah, you just discover those things in time. It's fine. I don't necessarily feel like I would want to change anything about the videos. Yeah, pretty happy with the channel. Are there any channels you wish you could be more like? So I already mentioned, a whole bunch of people, what feels like, 30 minutes ago. I already mentioned a bunch of channels that I really respect. What's hard with thinking about channels that I want to be like is, for me, the most interesting thing, or like the core thing, is the books. And so generally, anyone who's read a lot of books, I think, yeah, I would like to be like that, because I would love for there to be more videos on my channel of me having read more books, so that just like I do when I go and discover a new channel, I'm like, scroll down, try and find all of the videos for the books that I've actually read, and then just have this great old binge. And then I see that, they've made a video talking about a book that I haven't yet read, but I know that like 2 years from now, I'm finally going to go and watch Leaf by Leaf's video on War and Peace or something like that. So when I think about channels that I want to be more like, it's a little bit hard, because it balances. The obvious thing is just I want to read more books, and I want to have more videos talking about specific books on my channel. I would say that I generally admire the level of extra work that Chris at Leaf by Leaf does, where it does feel like, he's not just coming with a kind of virginal reaction to a book. He's like, let's talk about this book. Let's talk about a couple of extra documents that I've read to research it, or even a couple of extra supplementary texts. I really like, and I don't know if this is just a camaraderie thing, or that I really like, I happen to really like his personality, but Ruben at To Read As It May Concern, I really admire your way of just kind of being able to talk for a long time. It's like, I'm completely hooked, and it's sort of there are certain creators, and Maria at Strange Lucidity is like this as well, where it's just like, man, it would be nice to not live 7,000 kilometers from some of these people, because I feel like it would be cool to just like go out to a coffee shop and just talk about books for like 4 hours. But it's like, when I think about the question, are there channels that I wish I could be more like, because the channel, or my channel, is so journalistic, asking questions about are there channels I want to be more like is really, what sort of person do I want to be? And if I should just be that sort of person. Like, I'll just work hard to become that sort of person. So, yeah. And then, what's something that you love about your channel? That's the last question. What do I love about my channel? I guess I like that, of course I like it for the same fondness of it just being a consistent journal entry, and I'm able to go back and just know that, like, yes, I did work to create these videos and to create this content and be consistent with it. I generally like that I've become more comfortable, or what's the word? It's not more charismatic, but like I've become, I feel like I'm starting to really get this idea of genuine pretending, and this way of like, there can be insecurities of, I'm going to say something that I think is funny or that I think is charming, and there's a voice in your head that's like, oh, you just did something that you think is really charming. How much of a, what a liar, what a fraud you are. But then the way that I think about it is, when you're hanging out with friends, like hanging out with real people, and you say something that's funny, you say it because you want them to laugh. And there's a difference between like, I am being a fraud and I am working hard to create a genuine experience for this person. And so I would say that if there's something I like about my channel, it is that I feel like I'm starting to really internalize that distinction, and to know that it's okay to think I'm going to say something funny because I do actually want to be funny. Like, I want someone to laugh. Just like if I was chatting with someone, I would want to make them laugh, and I would like the positive reaction of seeing them laugh and just get like bubbly. And you can still do that when you're talking to a camera. So yeah, I think that that's something that I like about my channel. I think that there's a general comfort that I am starting to really like and be proud of for myself. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So that's the Honest Booktuber tag. Thank you again to Ruben for tagging me. I appreciate watching your video and all other people's videos. If you're watching this video and you have a Booktube channel, it'd be cool to make a video. Tag me so that I know. And yeah, thank you again for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.